Well, it is a pleasure to be here, and it's a special pleasure to be here when the male chorus is singing. I just love to hear them. I got to hear them both services, and I think I had the best seat there in the house, close to the tenors, yeah. Nothing against basses and baritones, but tenors. God's people, tenors. And we owe a real debt of gratitude to the musicians in our church who week after week provide music. Thank you to the organist, the accompanist there. As a former choir director, I know that all choir directors serve at the mercy of the accompanist. The accompanist is really the one in charge. What a good job she did as well. Thank you for that wonderful music. I bring you greetings from the faculty, staff, and students of Canadian University College. We had a grand year. It was a difficult year, but it was a good year. It was a difficult year because some of you may know we had a fire and explosion in the science building. We had a windstorm that knocked down trees. We had a snowstorm that knocked down part of the roof of the plant services building. But we're thankful we have good insurance. And the good thing is that from all of those bad things that happened, we're actually going to make things better. The science complex is going to be a better place because of some changes we were able to make in it as a result of the damage that was done and the repairs that are being made now. I like this photo especially because it represents so many good things that have happened at Canadian University College. One of the largest graduating classes we have ever had. I believe there were 114 there on that Sunday for graduation. And it represents the 30 majors and major tracks that we have there. I think some people, especially on the eastern half of Canada, don't understand how many various programs we have there at Canadian University College, all of them accredited by the province of Alberta. We grant our own degrees now, and our programs go through the same accreditation process as do the programs at the University of Alberta and the University of Calgary. So it's a full-fledged university approved by the province of Alberta, and this group represents a great number of those programs, some of them going into the job directly, many of them going on to graduate school. We have one of the best acceptance rates for medical schools of all of the Seventh-day Adventist institutions. Something like 95% of our students who apply to medical school get into medical school. And so it's a wonderful place. But the thing I like most about this photo is that if you zoom in and look at any part of this group, you'll see that all of God's children are there. All the different nationalities, all the different groups that have come to Canada, they're there at CUC getting a college degree. And I love that. I love the fact that CUC's student body looks like Canada. And I think that if you go there and you get your training there, you're prepared to work in Canada. Being prepared to work in a diverse, multicultural setting is a good thing nowadays, and I'm glad that we're positioned to do that. We finished 14 consecutive years of having small operating gains at the end of each year. Some of you remember when it was not that way at CUC, when there was debt and there were financial problems. 14 consecutive years. God has blessed us. God has helped us be good stewards so that each year we've had a small gain that we can use to save up for rainy days, pay our insurance premiums, and also do some fixing up around the campus. Enrollment has increased dramatically, and I believe that the students are satisfied. We determine that through a variety of surveys and questionnaires. If you've been checking my blog, you know that we participate in something that many secular universities and colleges in Canada participate in, and that is the National Survey of Student Engagement, NSSE. And we're very pleased at how we rank there amongst all of the other institutions in Canada. We're pleased that we are giving students a quality education. We're making steady improvements to the infrastructure. And as I said earlier, all of our degrees accredited by the province of Alberta and regularly reviewed to make sure that we're doing what is right. I know that sometimes I hear in Ontario that CUC is the 222 school. It's too far away, it's too cold, and it's too small. But I understand when people say that, but I just want to leave you before I begin my message with some other twos. I think that CUC is too affordable to not go to, because quite frankly, it is about $5,000 to $10,000 a year less to go to CUC than it is to go to the other Seventh-day Adventist institutions in the North American division. It's too affordable to miss out on. It's too Canadian for you not to go to. If you want to live and work in Canada, if you want to pay your bills with Canadian dollars, if you want to go to a school that looks like Canada, Canadian University College is that school. And finally, it's not too small. It's sized just right. It's too family-like. It's too personable. It's too caring to not go to Canadian University College. I don't know if any of you have read Malcolm Gladwell's most recent book called David and Goliath, but he has a fascinating chapter in there about the benefits of a smaller, more personable university setting. And so I believe that we're positioned so that students can come and have success and make lifelong friendships while strengthening their relationship with Jesus Christ. But as much as I like talking about CUC, what I want to talk to you about today are snakes. I don't like snakes. I hate snakes. Now, I know that there's probably some biologist, herpetologist, zoologist, some science teacher here is going to take me aside after the service and say, Brother Haynal, don't be so hard on snakes. They play an important role in the biological systems. I know that intellectually, but in my heart, I do not like snakes. If I were a spy and the enemy captured me, all they'd have to do is dangle a little snake in front of me, and I would give up all the secrets. I don't like snakes. And so when we read in Scripture, as we read this morning, that it was a snake that tempted Eve, I said, yeah, I understand that. They are no good. And when it was a snake that God cursed, I said, yes, Lord, you know what is best. Snakes, I don't like snakes. And I believe I come by this fear of snakes honestly. I think I can blame my father for this fear of snakes. Because you see, my father is a physician, and very early in my life, he was in Liberia, in Africa, and he would hike from village to village where he would hold clinics. And after hiking all day and holding clinics, he would come home, and he would tell us stories about the snakes that he saw. He would tell us scary stories about the black mamba on the ground and the green mamba in the tree. And he would say, these are 10-step snakes. They bite you. You take 10 steps and you fall over dead. Can you imagine telling your little children stories like that? He had this ongoing story about Samson, Oogie Doogie, and Little Lorpoo, 3 children, and their encounters with snakes and crocodiles and all kinds of terrible things. Stories so scary that if he were to tell them now to children in Toronto, Child Protective Services would come and cite him. So I grew up very afraid of snakes. After living in Africa, we moved to Thailand. Lots of snakes there, both on the land and in the water. One of my father's favorite things to do when we lived in Thailand was to take us on Sabbath afternoons to the Royal Snake Farm. There really is such a place, the Royal Snake Farm. They do lots of good research there, and they have lots of samples of poisonous snakes from all over Thailand and all over Eastern Asia. He used to like to time it so we would get there when they would gather up the venomous snakes, and they would milk them, gather up their venom for the research that they were doing there. After watching them milk the poisonous snakes, he liked to take us to the crocodile pit. Big cement pit filled with crocodiles. And he especially felt good if we got there at feeding time when they were tossing in the chickens to feed the crocodiles. This was his idea of a great Sabbath afternoon. And then Sabbath evening, as he would drive us home, he would insist that everybody in our little Volkswagen Beetle car there sing, "Never smile at a crocodile," as we would drive home. And then Saturday nights, my brothers would take over. I wonder if there are people here who have older brothers like I do. I have 2 older brothers. We do need to form a support group called I Survived, growing up with older brothers. Older brothers believe that it is their God-given duty and right to teach their younger siblings patience, endurance, teach them to be long-suffering. My brothers and I shared a bedroom there in our house in Bangkok, 3 beds in one room there. And Saturday night, as we would lie there ready to fall asleep, Andrew would say to Peter, "Peter, what's that under Mark's bed?" Peter would say, "I don't know, but it looks like a snake." Andrew would say, "What do you think it is? Do you think it's a cobra or maybe a black mamba?" I was just a little guy, 2, 3, 4 years old. And I had heard somewhere that if you encounter snakes, you should not make any sudden moves. And so I would lie in my bed perfectly still, this little toddler there, terrified as his older brothers tormented him. I know the Lord says we should forgive. I'm still working on it. Traumatized for life. I hate snakes. After living in Thailand, we moved to India, home of the king cobra. This is an amazing snake. They can grow to be 15, 16, 17 feet long, and they're able to raise 1/3 of their body length up off the ground. And when they bite you, their venom is not as toxic as mamba venom, but when they bite you, they inject so much that it has terrible effects on you. When cobras get agitated, they don't just hiss at you. They make a sound like a small dog growling. Can you just picture that? 5 or 6 feet of snake raised up, hood spread, looking down at you, growling at you. I hate snakes. After a couple of years of snake-free existence in Loma Linda and then at Pacific Union College, I went as a student missionary to Pakistan, where they also have lots of snakes. But it was there late at night at Pakistan Adventist Seminary that I learned 3 very simple lessons about staying away from snakes that have helped me in my spiritual journey when it comes to staying away from that serpent Satan and his snakes of temptation. 3 practical lessons. A friend and I had gone to the big city of Lahore to do some shopping. Larry and I got back late at night, got back on the train. It was late. There were no taxis available, so we were going to have to walk about 2 kilometers from the train station to the front gate of the mission station. And there were two ways that we could take. There was the long route that went through the village along paved roads. A snake-free route, I was sure. And then there was a short route that went directly back from the train station through a couple of wheat fields and then through the back gate of the mission school. Now, I had no college degrees back then, but I figured out very quickly, wheat fields attract rodents. Who eats rodents? Snakes. So I looked at that wheat field, and I was quite sure that there were 10, 20, 30 or more cobras slithering around that wheat field looking for rodents, but perfectly willing to bite me if I were to come along. So I said to Larry, why don't we take the long route through the village? I think it'd be lovely this time of year to walk through the village and go. And Larry said, "No, I'm tired, it's late, I'm in a hurry, I want to go to bed, we're taking the shortcut." And so he set off toward that wheat field. And it was at that moment that the first lesson struck me. Such a simple lesson. If you don't want to encounter snakes, don't go where you know the snakes are. I wish Eve had remembered that lesson and not gone where the snake was. If you don't want to encounter Satan and his snakes of temptation, don't go where you know they are. Don't go there on the television. Don't go there on the internet. Don't go there in what you read. Don't go there in your thoughts. Don't go to that part of Toronto. Don't go where you know the snakes are. We as humans have that ability. Between stimulus and response, we can stop and think about things and choose what we will do and choose where we will go. If you don't want to encounter Satan and his snakes, don't go where you know those snakes are. Bible has many texts that tell us that, but one of my favorites is this one from Proverbs. Look how many times the wise man says, don't go there. Do not set foot on the path of the wicked or walk in the way of the evildoer. There's one. Avoid it. 2, do not travel on it. 3, turn from it. 4, and go on your way. Don't go there. If you look at the old King James Version, they use the word flee. Because sometimes I think, and I look at my own life, we want to kind of stand from afar and look at those temptations and wonder about them and get to know a little bit more about them. But the Bible says, don't hang around on the periphery and have a look. No, flee from these things. But you man of God, you woman of God, flee from all this. There's a story told about a rich man who needed a new chauffeur. And so he put an ad out. Lots of people applied for this job. And he narrowed it down to 3 finalists. He called them in for an interview. He asked them a number of questions, but with each one of them, he ended by saying, let's say that we were driving through the mountains and the road was treacherous and windy. And on the right side, there's a tall mountainous cliff. On the other side, there's a drop-off. How good a driver are you? How close could you drive my limousine to the edge of the road and still safe? The first applicant said, I am such a good driver that I could drive your limousine right up to about half a meter from the edge of the cliff and you would be safe. Rich man thanked him and said, I'll get back in touch. Next man came in, he asked him the same question, how close could you drive and still keep me safe? This man said, I am so skilled that I could get within 5, 6, 7, 8 centimeters from the edge of the cliff and you would still be safe. Rich man thanked him. Third man came in, he asked him the same question, and this man said, I am such a good and safe driver, I will stay as far away from the edge to ensure that you are safe. This is what God is calling us to do. Don't hang around the edge of those things that we know are Satan and his snakes. Stay as far away as we possibly can with our choices. One of my personal research interests in my professional life is the study of self-control and willpower. Because quite frankly, that's what causes children to succeed, is their ability to delay gratification and persist in tasks that they must do. Some of you who have taken psychology classes may remember the old experiment done with kindergartners where they were brought into a room and they were said, here's a marshmallow. If you can wait 10 minutes and not eat this marshmallow, I'll come back and give you 2 marshmallows. And only about 25% of those kids were able to wait that 10 minutes to delay gratification, to control themselves. But those are the kids who went on to succeed. It is your willpower. It is your self-control. That's why God has listed self-control, one of the fruits of the spirits, your self-control. And so I've been studying things that affect our self-control, our diet, our mood, our associates affect our self-control. And I was reading just the other day this statement here. Anytime we see someone behaving badly, our own self-control deteriorates. And I don't have time, but if you talk to me at the potluck, I can tell you about some of the experiments they did where people viewed others breaking rules and suddenly they were far more willing to break those rules and do things that they didn't typically do. I think that's why the psalmist said, inspired by the master psychologist, to say, I will refuse to look at anything vile and vulgar because it affects us. We need to stay away from Satan and his snakes of temptation. Now, we as a church historically have been quite good at telling people to stay away from bad things. In fact, that's kind of our specialty. Don't do this and don't do that. And I recognize that we must have standards and we must not dabble in certain things. But you know what I wish we were equally famous for or more famous for? And that is providing good and wholesome things for people to do in place of those things. So every time we were saying no to our children, we were saying yes. Here are some other engaging, interesting, good things that you could do. Ellen White wrote this, a statement that wasn't read much when I was growing up, but I read it every chance I get in public. She says, while sinful amusements are condemned, as they should be, let parents, teachers, and guardians of youth provide in their stead innocent pleasures which will not corrupt. It may cost us more money to find those good things. It may take more of our time to organize wholesome activities that are enjoyable for our young people. They may not always initially appreciate them, but I think that's what God is calling us to do. Yes, we have to say no, but let us be known for providing our young people, especially, with wholesome and good things to do. That's why I'm such a proponent, such a supporter of Christian education. And when I say Christian education, I'm not just talking about the school. Our young people need what I call 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day Christian education in the home, in the church, in the school, Pathfinders, Sabbath school, church socials, all day long, all week long. You don't just put a plant in dirt once a week and think it'll grow. No, it needs 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day nurture. This is what I wish we would be known for. And this is what our schools attempt to do, to provide them wholesome activities to get involved in, where they can develop physically, mentally, and spiritually, doing enjoyable things that are healthy and wholesome. And so Larry took off through that wheat field. And I decided I would go with him. But I'm telling you, it was no chore for me to follow him closely. I followed him as closely as it is appropriate for two guys to follow each other as they walk through a wheat field. I was glad to be in his presence. I was glad I was not alone. Part of me thought, maybe if the snakes come, they'll bite him first and I'll have time to run. But for all those reasons, I was happy to be with someone else. And there's the second simple lesson that I want to share with you. You know, we can try to stay away from Satan and his snakes, but he just sneaks in those snakes of temptation everywhere, it seems like. And sometimes we find ourselves facing temptation we didn't want to. We didn't plan on it. When you face Satan and his snakes of temptation, don't do it alone. Don't do it alone. Have Christian brothers and sisters who will encourage you and who will hold you accountable and who will help you through the difficult times. The Bible says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down or encounters a snake, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. What did God say after he created Adam? It is not good for man to be alone. When we're by ourselves, we're weaker. When we're by ourselves, we sometimes do things that we wouldn't do if we had our Christian brothers and sisters with us, there to encourage us, to hold us accountable. That's why I love this text in 1 Thessalonians. So encourage each other and build each other up, because it's hard encountering Satan and his snakes. The other thing that we can do is that we can sense that we are not alone because we are always in God's presence. He is always with us, and he can watch as we live our lives. And some people think that that's a negative thing, that the Lord is watching everywhere, keeping his eye on both the evil and the good. But it is a good thing for us to sense God's presence with us. It does give us strength. It does help us to make better choices. And that's why the psalmist wrote, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy." I love the story that Morris Venden used to tell to illustrate the power of the presence of others. He said there was once a young couple, deeply in love, but they had made a commitment to remain sexually pure throughout their courtship. But they found themselves one beautiful evening overlooking the lights of Toronto. They're there alone in the car, feeling amorous, feeling weak, wanting to give in to temptation, when suddenly they look in the rearview mirror and they see car lights approaching. And there a good Caribbean father has come to check on his daughter just to make sure everything is okay. And suddenly, because of the presence of the Father, they are no longer weak. They're able to resist the temptation because of the presence of the Father. Or consider someone who has a problem with shoplifting. There they are in the aisle of a Walmart, all alone, and they're feeling weak, ready to give in to this snake of temptation, when behind them they hear a voice saying, "May I help you?" So maybe it wasn't Walmart. They hear a voice behind them saying, "May I help you?" Suddenly they're strong. They can resist the temptation because of the presence of others. We need each other. We need to hold each other accountable in love. And that's why I am so fond of Christian education. Because this is how we gather our children in a fellowship of believers and surround them with faculty and staff, role models who will encourage them, who will hold them accountable in love. Remember, I said in love. We love to hold people accountable sometimes. We don't always do it in love. Hold each other accountable in love. 7-day-a-week, 24-hour-a-day Christian education, a fellowship of believers, daily invitations to live a life that is pleasing to God and a blessing to others. We need each other. Don't face Satan and his snakes alone. So there are the first two lessons. Don't want to encounter Satan and his snakes? Don't go where you know they are. Second lesson, when you do encounter them, don't do it alone. Let's sing one more wonderful hymn, hymn 554. 554 teaches us, walk with thee. Dare not walk alone. And why don't we do just the second verse of this hymn? Because if you look at the second verse there, it says, in the hymn book it says, 1,000 snares beset my feet. But I think today we're going to sing 1,000 snakes beset my feet. Let us sing just this one verse of 554. Sing with me. I cannot, dare not walk alone. The tempest rages in the sky. 1,000 snakes beset my feet. 1,000 foes are lurking nigh. Still thou the raging of the sea. O Master, let me walk with thee. So I set off with Larry through that wheat field, and as I began walking with him, I remembered something that my father would tell us at the end of his scary stories. Perhaps he was feeling guilty about having scared his children so much that he would say, well, you know, children, all I ever really saw were the tails of snakes leaving the trail. He said, because the snakes can sense that you're coming. They feel the vibrations. They know you're coming, and most of them are going to get out of your way. I remembered that. I walked with Larry through that wheat field. So I made as much noise as possible. Stomped my feet as we walked through. I was talking loudly, clapping my hands for various things, singing loudly. I wanted to make sure those snakes knew I was coming. And it worked. I am here today, I am sure, because I made so much noise. But there is the third lesson that I want to leave with you. When you encounter Satan and his snakes, you need to make some Christian noise. You need to make some Christian noise. Because Satan and his snakes don't like to be around where people are praising God. They don't like to be around where Scripture promises are being quoted. Ellen White says this in a wonderful quote from the book Heavenly Places, page 95. When things go crossways at your home, when those snakes start to get loose in your home, strike up a song about the matchless charms of the Son of God, and I tell you, when you strike this strain, Satan will leave you. You can drive out the enemy with his gloom. Satan doesn't like to be around where people are making Christian noise. And this is the other reason I am so much a supporter of Christian education. 7-day-a-week, 24-hour days in the home, in the school, in the church, teaching young people to make Christian noise. I am so thankful that my parents, my Sabbath school teachers, my church school teachers have put in my mind memory verses, Bible promises, psalms that I sing, scripture songs, hymns, all kinds of ways that I can make Christian noise. Because I'm telling you, it helps you through those discouraging moments. It helps you through times when you're feeling oppressed to make some Christian noise. So there I leave you with these 3 simple lessons about staying away from snakes. First lesson, you don't want to encounter snakes, Satan and his snakes. Don't go where you know those snakes are. And if you do encounter them, don't do it alone. Brothers and sisters to encourage you, sense of Jesus' presence with you. Finally, as you do encounter Satan and his snakes, make some Christian noise. Let us close our service by making some wonderful Christian noise as we sing the hymn, Rejoice, ye pure in heart. Rejoice. That's the old-fashioned word for make some Christian noise. Let us stand up and sing with great joy. Rejoice, ye pure in heart. Rejoice, give thanks and sing, because if you are bitten by Satan and his snakes, Jesus has the antidote, and he loves to give it to you when you need forgiveness. His grace, his mercy is there for all of us who have given in to the snakes. That's reason to rejoice, give thanks, and sing.